Once upon a time, in a small valley nestled between rolling hills and gentle mountains, there lived a young boy named Haru. Haru grew up in a village surrounded by fields of rice and groves of plum trees. His home was made of wood and clay, with a thatched roof that kept him warm in winter and cool in summer. A narrow stream flowed nearby, winding through the village like a silver ribbon and providing water for the rice paddies. Haru loved the sound of that stream. He would sit on its banks and listen to the water laugh over stones, feeling at peace watching leaves float by. Haru was curious about everything. He asked questions about why birds sang, how rice grew in water, and where the sun went at night. His mother and father did their best to answer him, but there were many things they did not know. His father was a farmer, busy most days planting and harvesting. His mother took care of their home and tended a small garden of herbs. They loved their son and encouraged his curiosity, but they also had chores to do and could not always sit and talk. The village elders told him old tales about spirits that lived in the mountains and heroes who fought dragons. Haru loved these stories, yet he also wondered about real things, about life and death, happiness and sadness. He would watch the people around him and see that some seemed content with simple tasks, while others were restless, always seeking more. When he saw his father wipe sweat from his brow after a long day in the fields, Haru would ask, "Father, why do you work so hard?" His father would smile and say, "To put rice in our bowls and a roof over our heads, son." It was a true answer, but Haru sensed there was something deeper. As Haru grew older, his curiosity did not fade. His friends cared about playing games, catching fish in the stream, and racing one another to the plum groves. Haru enjoyed these activities too, but often, when his friends were ready to go home, Haru would sit alone under a plum tree, thinking. He would gaze at the clouds, watch them drift and change shapes, and wonder about the nature of time. He wanted to understand why people were born, why they grew old, and why they left the world. His questions were not just about his village, but about existence itself. One night, sitting by the stream under the stars, Haru heard the village elder talk about a wise teacher who lived at the top of the highest hill. Some called him the mountain sage. Others said he was a Zen master. It was said that he knew the secrets of life and could help a person find peace. The elder spoke with reverence. "He sees the truth behind appearances," the elder whispered to a group of children who were seated around a small fire. "He knows that the world is like a reflection on water, real and yet not what it seems." Haru's heart beat faster when he heard the elder talk. Could this sage help him find answers to his questions? Could he teach Haru how to be at peace in a world that felt big and confusing? Haru knew he would have to climb the hill to find out. He looked up and saw the outline of the hill against the night sky, its crest hidden in the darkness. He imagined the sage sitting there, wise and calm, looking over the valley. Haru decided that as soon as he could, he would climb the hill and meet the master. The journey begins. The next morning, Haru woke early. Mist hung low over the fields, turning them into a quiet sea of white. Birds were starting to sing in the hedges. He told his mother he was going to gather firewood for the day, though in his heart he knew he was setting off on a different journey. He tucked a small rice ball into his robe and took a flask of water from the jar by the door. It was not a long climb to the top of the hill, but he felt nervous. He had never spoken to a sage before, and he feared he might not be worthy. The path up the hill wound through tall grasses and bamboo groves. Butterflies fluttered around him, and the dew on the leaves shimmered like jewels. Haru walked slowly, feeling the earth under his feet. He remembered his father once told him, "Walk gently, and the earth will speak to you." As he climbed higher, the mist thinned, and the world below opened up. He saw the village as a cluster of tiny houses, the stream as a silver line, and the fields as patches of gold and green. Beyond them, the mountains rose in layers, blue and distant. Haru's heart beat with anticipation. He wondered what the sage would look like. Would he be tall and stern, or small and kind? Would he speak in riddles or plain words? His mind filled with hopes and fears. What if the master found his questions foolish? What if he could not understand the master's teachings? He told himself to breathe and keep walking. Every step brought him closer to the top. As he reached the final bend in the path, he saw a simple wooden gate. On a sign by the gate were the characters for Zen Temple. Beyond it was a courtyard with a stone lantern, a cherry tree, and a wooden building with a tiled roof. A gentle breeze made the leaves rustle. Haru stopped for a moment and bowed before entering the gate. He felt his heart quiet down. The air inside seemed calm, almost like time itself was slowing down. In the courtyard, a man in simple gray robes was sweeping the ground. He was bent slightly, his movements slow and deliberate. Haru watched the sweep of his broom, the way he moved with rhythm, as if he were dancing. The man noticed Haru and looked up. His face was lined with age, but his eyes were bright like a child's. There was a soft smile on his lips. Haru approached and bowed. "Excuse me, sir, are you the Zen master?" he asked, his voice trembling. The old man laughed gently. "People call me that. You may call me Master Gaku." He leaned on his broom and looked at Haru with kindness. "What brings you here, young one?" Haru felt the lump in his throat. "Master Gaku," he said, "I have many questions about life. I want to find Zen. I want to understand why we live and why we suffer. Will you please teach me?" Master Gaku studied him quietly. He did not answer right away. Instead, he motioned for him to sit with him beneath the cherry tree. They sat in silence as a few petals fluttered down. The silence felt heavy at first, but then it grew light, like the air after a storm. Finally, the master spoke. "Zen is not something you can grasp with your hands like a stone. It is like the wind. You feel it, but you cannot hold it. It is like the reflection of the moon in the water, visible but not solid. You want to find Zen, but Zen is already within you." Haru frowned. "But master, I do not feel it. I feel confused and restless. How long will it take me to understand?" Master Gaku looked up at the cherry tree, his eyes following the falling petals. He seemed to listen to something far away. Then he turned back to Haru and said, 10 years. Haru's eyes widened. He repeated, 10 years? He thought of the seasons passing, the rice being planted and harvested 10 times. 10 years seemed like forever to a boy who was barely in his teens. He felt a mixture of shock and disappointment. "Master," he said quickly, "what if I work very hard? I am willing to study day and night. I will do whatever it takes. If I put in twice the effort, can I understand in less time?" The master smiled, as if hearing the question from 1,000 students before him. He answered, 20 years. Haru blinked. He thought he had misheard. 20? He said. But master, that is longer. I thought working harder would make it shorter. The master gently lifted a fallen cherry petal and let it float down again. When you try to run toward a river's source, you may stumble. When your eyes are fixed only at the top of the mountain, you may miss the stones beneath your feet. If you force yourself, if you race, you create your own obstacles. Double your effort, and your restlessness doubles. That is why I said 20 years. Haru's brow wrinkled. He felt confused. He thought that hard work always shortened the path. He thought that when you were determined, you reached your destination faster. Yet this master was saying the opposite. But what if I devote myself completely? Haru insisted. What if I give up everything else? What if I live here and think only of Zen, night and day? How long will it take then? Master Gaku leaned against the tree trunk and closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, they shone with gentle understanding. 30 years, he said. Haru gasped. 30 years, he repeated, his voice almost a whisper. He looked down at his hands, trying to make sense of the master's words. He felt a heaviness in his chest. I do not understand, he said quietly. Why do the years grow longer when I promise to work harder? Why does dedication seem to push the goal further away? Master Gaku rested his hands on his knees. Because you have one eye fixed on the goal, he said simply. And if one eye is fixed on the goal, you have only one eye left for the path. You cannot see clearly with one eye. You stumble. Zen is not a reward waiting at the end of a race. It is the calmness you find while walking. If you only think of the end, you miss the beauty of each step. Zen is the sound of the broom sweeping, the sight of cherry petals falling, the taste of rice you eat when you are hungry. It is right here. Haru listened carefully. He looked around. The breeze moved the leaves gently. A bird sang on a branch. The master's broom rested against the tree. The world felt simple and yet full. Haru realized there was wisdom hidden in the master's words. He felt his shoulders relax. The rush in his heart slowed. He looked up and saw the sky through the branches. It was very blue. Learning through daily tasks. Master Gaku did not send Haru away. Instead, he invited him to stay at the temple for a while. If you wish to learn, stay and help. Sweep the grounds, carry water, chop wood, and sit with the others. Watch and listen. Sometimes the answers come when you are not looking for them. Haru agreed eagerly. He felt honored to be allowed to stay. Life in the temple was simple. The day began before sunrise. A small bell would ring and everyone would wake. They would wash their faces, then gather in the meditation hall. Master Gaku would sit at the front, his posture straight, his breath calm. The others would sit on cushions, their legs crossed, their hands resting gently in their laps. Haru had never meditated before. At first, he found it difficult. He shifted and moved, his legs falling asleep, his mind racing. He thought about the chores he had to do, the questions he wanted to ask. He wondered how long they had been sitting and how long they had left. One day after meditation, Haru approached the master. "My legs hurt and my thoughts keep running," he confessed. "Am I doing something wrong?" The master smiled. "You notice your pain and you notice your thoughts, That is already good. Do not fight them. When your leg hurts, observe the pain like you would observe a bird landing in a tree. When a thought arises, see it and let it pass like a cloud. Just keep sitting. With time, your legs will hurt less and your mind will quiet. Haru nodded. The next time they sat, he tried to follow the master's advice. When his mind wandered, he brought it back to his breath. When his leg tingled, he noticed it without moving right away. Over days and weeks, the pain lessened and his thoughts slowed. He found small moments when everything felt still, when he could hear the birds outside and feel the air on his skin, without any other thought in his mind. Those moments were brief, but they gave him a glimpse of peace. After meditation, the monks and students would do chores. There was no difference between those tasks and any other part of the day. They were done with care. Haru learned to sweep the courtyard in smooth strokes. He learned to chop wood without wasting energy, letting the axe fall with its own weight. When he carried buckets of water from the well, he tried not to spill. He noticed the light dancing on the water's surface. He noticed his breath as he walked. One afternoon, while he was sweeping, he asked the master, "How does sweeping help me find Zen?" The master looked at him and held up the broom. "Do you see this broom?" he asked. Haru nodded. "When you sweep," the master said, "only sweep. Do not think about yesterday's mistakes or tomorrow's worries. Do not imagine yourself as a great sage sweeping. Just sweep. Feel the weight of the broom. Hear the rustle of the straw. Watch the dust rise and settle. If your mind wanders, bring it back to the broom. The broom is your teacher." At first, Haru did not fully understand, but he tried. He focused on the broom. He felt the muscles of his arms, the rhythm of his breath. He began to notice how his mind quieted when he stayed with the task. There were times when he forgot he was trying to learn Zen. He just swept, and there was a gentle happiness in that. The master also gave him small stories to ponder. One evening, as the sun set and the clouds turned pink, Master Gaku told him, "Imagine you are rowing a boat on a misty river. Suddenly, another boat comes down the river and collides with yours. You become angry and shout at the person in the other boat. But when the mist clears, you see that the other boat is empty. There is no one to blame. The boat hit you because of the current, not because of someone's intention. If you understand this, you will not be angry." Haru thought about the story. He remembered times when he had blamed others for his difficulties. He wondered how many of those times were like being struck by an empty boat, events that happened because of circumstances rather than someone's ill will. He began to see that often his anger only hurt himself. Although Haru was learning, he still felt impatience at times. There were days when his mind was clear and he felt at peace. Then there were days when he felt restless, when he longed to see his friends or to go fishing in the stream. He sometimes felt like he was missing out on the joys of childhood while sweeping floors and carrying water. He would see the other children in the village playing games, and for a moment his heart would ache. One rainy day, he sat under the eaves of the temple and watched raindrops fall from the roof. He thought of his mother at home, cooking and humming softly. He thought of his father, working in the rain. He wondered if he had chosen the right path. He felt lonely. The master approached and sat beside him. "You seem troubled," Master Gaku observed. "I miss home," Haru admitted. "I miss my parents and my friends. I do not know if I should stay or go." The master nodded. "Homesickness is natural. Missing your family and friends does not mean this path is wrong. It is a part of being human. He paused, listening to the rain. When you walk a path, you sometimes see other paths you could have taken. You wonder if you chose correctly. But there is no perfect path. There is only the path you are on. Be where you are fully, and whatever path you choose will bloom. Haru let the words sink in. He realized that even if he went home, he might wonder about the temple. No matter where he was, his mind could wander. The master's advice was to be present. He decided to stay for a while longer. He promised himself he would return home to visit his parents soon, so that his heart would not feel torn. Another challenge came when Haru met another student named Kenji. Kenji had been at the temple longer than Haru and seemed very disciplined. He always sat perfectly still during meditation. He never spilled a drop when carrying water. Haru could not help but compare himself to Kenji. He felt inadequate. I am not as good as he is, he thought. Maybe I will never reach Zen. One evening, after a day of feeling discouraged, he approached Master Gaku. Master, he said, Kenji seems to progress faster than I. He never moves during meditation, and he is always calm. I feel restless, and my mind wanders. Am I failing? The master smiled and shook his head. You are not failing. Kenji's path is his, and yours is yours. You do not know his struggles, and he does not know yours. To compare is to invite suffering. Imagine a cherry tree and a pine tree. The cherry blooms in spring, the pine stays green in winter. Is the cherry worse because it loses its leaves? Is the pine wrong because it does not have flowers? Each tree follows its own nature. You must follow yours. Haru listened. He realized that in comparing himself to Kenji, he had created his own unhappiness. He decided to focus on his own practice. The next morning, when they meditated, he noticed that even though Kenji seemed still, a mosquito buzzed around his ear and he flinched slightly. Haru realized that everyone had small struggles, even if they did not show them. As the seasons changed, so did Haru's understanding. The temple did not have formal lessons every day. Instead, Master Gaku used nature itself as a teacher. He would often take the students on walks through the hills and forests. He would point out the changing colors of leaves, the way a spider spun its web, or the way bamboo bent in the wind without breaking. Each observation carried a lesson. One spring morning, the master led a group of students to a grove of bamboo. The stalks were tall and green, rising straight up like pillars. The wind blew and they swayed gracefully. Notice the bamboo, the master said. It is strong yet flexible. If a storm comes, it bends but does not break. It yields to the wind and then stands straight again. Be like the bamboo. When difficulties come, bend but do not break. Do not be so rigid that you snap. Haru nodded. He had seen people break under pressure, like dry sticks. He had seen others bend and adapt. He began to see the wisdom in being flexible. One day, when a fellow student accidentally spilled water and panicked, Haru gently helped him clean up. He realized he did not have to scold or be upset. He could be like bamboo. Another day, they climbed to a clearing where they could see the mountains clearly. The peaks rose high into the sky, their tops sometimes hidden by clouds. Look at the mountains, Master Gaku said. They stand tall and unmoving. They are silent, yet they shape the rivers and valleys around them. They teach us patience. Over thousands of years, mountains change. Stones break down, soil washes away, but the mountains remain. Practice is like a mountain. You may not notice change every day, but over time, you will be shaped by your effort. Haru looked at the mountains and felt small. He realized that true change might take longer than he thought. He also saw beauty in that. Nothing worth learning was rushed. In autumn, when leaves turned red and gold, they visited a pond covered with fallen leaves. A frog sat on a rock at the edge, its eyes half closed. "Watch the frog," the master whispered. They watched as the frog sat still. Then, in a blink, it leapt into the pond, creating ripples that spread outward. The frog teaches us alertness. It is still when stillness is needed, and jumps when action is required. Practice stillness so you can act wisely when the time comes. Haru watched the ripples spread across the pond. He thought of his own mind. When he was still, he could see things clearly. When he was restless, everything felt chaotic. The frog's lesson stayed with him. Later, when one of the students tripped and dropped a basket of vegetables, Haru did not rush to scold or panic. Instead, he paused, took a breath, and then helped pick up the vegetables calmly. Back at the temple, the rhythm of life resumed. Haru felt more comfortable now. His legs no longer hurt as much when he sat. He could sweep for hours without thinking of anything else. He noticed details he had missed before, the way the morning light entered the meditation hall, the smell of damp earth after rain, the feeling of wind on his skin. He discovered that when he paid attention, simple things were vivid and beautiful. One day, during a break, he sat with Master Gaku and asked, "Master, I understand that I should focus on the path, not the goal, but sometimes I still worry about the future. I wonder what will happen to my parents when they get old, or what I will do if I get sick. How do I stop worrying?" Master Gaku nodded. He picked up a cup of tea and held it out. "Hold this cup," he said. Haru took the cup. "Imagine you have to carry this cup full of tea across a narrow bridge," the master continued. "If you walk too quickly, you will spill it. If you think only of reaching the other side, you may not watch where you step. But if you walk slowly, paying attention to each step and to the cup, you will reach the other side without spilling it. Life is like that. The future is like the other side of the bridge. You cannot see it clearly, but you can take care of this moment, this step. If you take care of each step, the future will take care of itself." Haru looked at the tea in the cup, its surface rippling slightly. He imagined walking across a bridge. He realized that worrying about what might happen did not help. All he could do was do his best now. He bowed his head in thanks. Later, when he was sweeping, he thought about how many times he had spilled a bucket of water because he rushed, or how often he had tripped because he was looking ahead rather than at his feet. He saw the wisdom of focusing on now. He decided that whenever he felt worry rise, he would bring his attention back to his breathing, his steps, or his task. As months turned into years, Haru's understanding deepened. He began to see that Zen was not something he would one day reach and be done with. It was a way of being. It was a practice, a continuous return to the present moment. Some days he felt aligned with it. Other days he felt distracted. Both were part of the journey. One snowy evening, Master Gaku told the students another story. A man built a house on a high cliff, thinking it would last forever. He worked for months, carefully placing each stone. After many years, a strong storm came. The sea below rose, and the wind screamed. The man's house shook. Parts of it broke. The man ran outside, terrified, and held on to a tree. He cried, "Why is this happening? I built my house so carefully." The storm passed, and half his house was gone, but the foundation remained. The man began to rebuild. He realized that building the house was not the end. It was a process. He would always have to mend it. In the same way, our understanding needs mending. We do not reach an end. We keep building. Haru understood. He saw that his practice would always need care. He also saw beauty in that. It meant that each day mattered. Each sweep of the broom, each breath during meditation, each smile he gave a fellow student, these were all part of building his house. Time passed. Haru grew taller. His voice deepened. His hair, once unruly, now tied neatly when he worked, showed a few silver strands. He became known not only as a student, but also as a helper at the temple. New students came, nervous like he once had been. Haru smiled at them kindly, showing them how to sit, how to breathe, how to carry water without spilling. He told them stories he had heard from Master Gaku, and some he had made up himself. One day, a young girl arrived at the temple. Her name was May. She had bright eyes and was curious, like Haru used to be. She asked many questions. Why do we have to meditate with our eyes half closed? Why do we sweep the same ground every day? What does emptiness mean? Haru smiled at her eagerness. He saw himself in her. He answered her questions patiently, and sometimes he would guide her to discover the answer herself. When she asked how long it would take to find Zen, Haru smiled and said, "It will take as long as it takes. Focus on now." He realized he was repeating Master Gaku's words, yet they were coming from his own understanding now. One morning, May seemed frustrated. She complained, "My mind keeps wandering. I think about my family, about my cat, about the future. I cannot stop thinking." Haru nodded. "Your mind is like a playful kitten. It likes to run and jump. You cannot force it to sit still for long. Instead, you gently bring it back to your lap when it wanders. Each time it jumps, you bring it back, kindly. Eventually, it will learn to rest." May giggled at the thought of her mind as a kitten. She tried the next day during meditation. When her thoughts ran away, she imagined picking up a kitten and placing it gently back on her lap. It made her smile, and she felt less frustrated. As Haru guided others, he learned more about himself. Teaching made him see his own habits more clearly. When he gave advice to May, he heard his own words and realized he sometimes forgot them. He saw that teaching was also a way of practicing. Years flowed like the stream in the valley. The boy who once climbed the hill in search of answers had grown into a man with calm eyes and a quiet smile. The villagers often invited him to their homes to bless a new child or to comfort a family during grief. Haru did not think of himself as a master. He thought of himself as a fellow traveler. He continued to learn from Master Gaku, from the students, from nature, and from each moment. One evening, on the eve of a harvest festival, Haru sat by the stream with May, who was now a young woman. The stars were bright, the water flowed gently. May turned to Haru and asked, "Do you remember the first time you climbed the hill?" Haru smiled and nodded. "Yes, I do," he said. "I was nervous. I wanted answers. I thought Zen was something I could get if I worked hard enough." "And did you get it?" May asked, tilting her head. Haru chuckled. "I realized that Zen is not something to get. It is here, in this moment. It is in the way the stream sounds, the feel of the grass under our legs, the taste of the rice ball we ate earlier. It is in the way we listen to one another. It is in our awareness, our kindness. The journey never ends because each moment is new. May looked at the stream, then at the sky. She said, "I think I understand a little. When I first came, I wanted to be as calm as you and Master Gaku. I thought there was a finish line, but now I see that each day is the practice. It feels lighter when I think of it that way." Haru placed a hand on her shoulder and said, "That is wisdom, to see that the journey itself is the destination, to see that the fruit is not only at the top of the tree, but in each step you take climbing it." They sat in silence, listening to the night. In that silence, words were unnecessary. The stream flowed, carrying leaves and small branches. The stars twinkled. Somewhere a dog barked. Everything was as it was. It was simple, yet it held the whole universe within it. Years earlier, Master Gaku had told Haru an analogy about a person climbing a tree to reach a fruit. Over time, Haru had come up with his own stories to illustrate the lessons he had learned. He shared one of them with May as they walked back to the temple that night. He said, "Imagine you are baking bread." May laughed. "Baking bread? How is that like Zen?" she asked. "Listen," Haru continued, smiling. "You mix flour, water, yeast, and salt. You knead the dough. At first it is sticky. It clings to your hands. You want it to become smooth and elastic. You knead and knead, pressing and folding, pressing and folding. You cannot rush it. If you try to force it to be done quickly, you tear the dough. Instead, you relax your arms, let your hands feel the dough, and you work with the dough patiently. Eventually, it becomes smooth." He looked at May to see if she was following. She nodded, imagining the dough under her hands. "Then," Haru continued, "you let the dough rest. You cover it with a cloth and wait. You cannot shout at it to rise faster. You cannot pull it apart to see if it has risen. You must trust the yeast to do its work. If you have patience, the dough will rise. If you keep peeking and disturbing it, it will not rise properly. Life is like that. Your understanding needs time. You need to knead your mind with practice, and then let it rest. Do not keep checking if you are there yet. If you do, you will deflate your progress." May laughed. "So Zen is like bread dough," she said, her eyes shining. Haru nodded. "Yes, and when it is ready, you bake it. The smell fills the house. You share it with others. The bread is the result of your patience and care. The joy of sharing it is like the joy of sharing your peace with others." May imagined the smell of fresh bread and understood. She realized that wisdom came in different forms. It could be in kneading dough, sweeping a floor, or simply listening to the rain. There came a time when Haru felt drawn back to the stream where he had first heard of the Master. He stood by the water, watching it flow. He thought of all the steps that had brought him there, the questions he asked as a child, the climb up the hill, the frustration and impatience, the lessons and stories, the moments of calm and the moments of doubt. He realized that each part of his journey was necessary. If he had not been impatient, he might not have understood the lesson of patience. If he had not asked how long it would take, he might not have understood that Zen had no timetable. He picked up a leaf and placed it on the water. The current carried it away. He watched until it disappeared around a bend. He saw that the leaf's journey down the stream was like his own journey. The leaf did not know where it would end up. It simply moved with the current, bumping into stones, dancing in eddies, floating under bridges. If the leaf had been able to think, Perhaps it would have wanted to be at a certain point quickly, but the stream carried it at its own pace. Haru laughed softly at the thought of a leaf being impatient. He realized that when he was younger, he had been like that leaf, wishing the current to speed up. Now he felt more like the stream itself, flowing calmly, embracing each twist and turn. He understood that life had its own rhythm, and that rhythm was wise. When Haru returned to the temple that evening, Master Gaku was sitting by a lantern reading a scroll. He looked up and smiled. "Ah, Haru," he said, "you have been with us for many years. What have you learned?" I bowed. I said, "I have learned that there is nothing to learn, and yet there is everything to learn. I have learned that answers do not come when I chase them. They come when I stop and listen. I have learned that Zen is not a prize, but a way of living." Master Gaku nodded, his eyes twinkling. "And how long did it take you to learn that?" he asked with a playful smile. I laughed. "It took as long as it needed. Sometimes it felt like 10 years, sometimes like 20, and sometimes like none at all." The master laughed with him. "Good," he said. "You have learned well. Now go and make tea. And remember, when you make tea, just make tea." Haru bowed and went to the kitchen. He boiled water, warmed the teapot, measured the leaves, and poured the hot water. He watched the leaves swirl and unfold. He did not think of the past or the future. He thought of the water, the tea, and the warmth it would bring. When he served the tea to Master Gaku, he did so with both hands, fully present. The tea tasted better than any he had made before, though he had used the same leaves and water as always. He understood why. His heart was in it. Years later, when Master Gaku grew very old, he called Haru to his bedside. He said, "My time here is ending. You will continue after I am gone. Remember what you have learned. Remember that the path is the destination. Teach others not to chase, but to be present. Show them the beauty in sweeping, in carrying water, in chopping wood. Show them that Zen is in everyday life." Haru felt tears fill his eyes. He had loved the master like a father and a friend. "I will remember," he whispered. "I will honor your teachings." Master Gaku smiled and closed his eyes, and he passed away peacefully, like a leaf falling gently to the ground. The temple held a ceremony, and people from the village came to pay their respects. They told stories of the master's kindness, his wisdom, and his simple ways. Haru did not see the master's passing as an end. He saw it as part of the flow. The master had been a stone in the river. Now he was part of the water itself. Haru continued to live in the temple. He guided students, visited the village, listened to the stream, and watched the seasons change. He never forgot the day he climbed the hill and asked how long it would take to find Zen. He smiled at the memory. It had been the beginning of a journey that had no end, and that was the beauty of it. One day, many years later, a young boy from the village climbed the hill. He approached Haru, who was sweeping the courtyard, and bowed. "Master Haru," he said, "I have many questions about life. I want to find Zen. Will you teach me?" Haru looked at the boy. He saw the same bright eyes he had once had. He smiled gently. "I will sweep," he said, handing the broom to the boy, "and you watch. Then you will sweep, and I will watch, and while we sweep, we will talk." The boy's face lit up. "How long will it take me to learn?" he asked. Haru laughed softly. 10 years, he said. The boy's eyes widened. 10 years, he repeated. What if I work hard? If I sweep every day and never stop, will it be shorter? 20 years, Haru replied, his eyes twinkling. And if I dedicate my whole life to it? He asked, a little frustrated. 30 years, Haru said calmly. The boy frowned, confused. I don't understand. Why? He asked. Haru handed him the broom. When you have one eye on the goal, you have only one eye on the path. When you sweep, just sweep. When you eat, just eat. Zen is right here, right now. If you keep looking ahead, you will trip over the stones. If you focus on where your feet are, you will walk without stumbling. The boy listened. He looked at the broom in his hand. He felt the weight of it. He heard the leaves rustling. He began to sweep. At first, his mind darted with questions, but he remembered Haru's words. He watched the broom. He listened to its sound. Slowly, his questions quieted. A peace he had not known before settled in his chest. Haru watched him, his heart full. He knew that another circle had begun. He knew that the boy would ask and learn, stumble and find his footing, grow restless and discover patience. He knew that the journey would unfold as it needed to, and that knowing filled him with joy. Epilogue: The Endless Journey. The story of Haru is not about reaching a final answer or a single moment of enlightenment. It is about living each moment with attention and kindness. Haru's journey teaches that peace does not come from rushing to a destination, but from embracing the path itself. The child who asks, the young man who sweeps, the elder who teaches, all are parts of a single flow. Like the stream that flows through the village, life moves on. Leaves fall, seasons change, and new seekers climb the hill. The wisdom remains, not as a trophy, but as a living breath in each person who listens, sweeps, and smiles. When you read this story and feel inspired to seek answers, remember Haru and his broom. Remember the cherry petals falling and the bamboo swaying. Remember the bread rising and the tea brewing. Let these images remind you that the heart of life is in the simple, everyday moments. Whatever question you carry, whatever goal you aim for, know that the path you walk is as important as the end you seek. So take a step, breathe, and be present. The rest will take care of itself.